Mr. Attorney General, I would love to just sort of off the top here, because of the reporting out of Florida, get your thoughts on Jack Smith, legal special counsel or not, somebody who doctored evidence and planted evidence at a crime scene. Is that allowed?
It's absolutely not allowed. And I would say that there's a fine line between, misordering the evidence and manufacturing evidence. And if that line was crossed, then it's going to be time to prosecute the prosecutors. This is clearly a weaponized Department of Justice intent on a political attack against President Trump. They've deployed resources in the form of Matthew Colangelo, the formerly third-ranking official at Biden's crooked Department of Justice, to the trial court level prosecution to assist Alvin Bragg in New York to obtain a legally errant conviction in New York. They're doing the same thing in federal court in Florida. They're doing the same thing in Georgia. Each of these cases is replete with procedural and constitutional error. That's not accidental. It's because it was an illicit witch hunt prosecution from the beginning. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and it is clearly Biden's weaponization of government against President Trump. And if they can do it to President Trump, they can do it to all of us. They're so desperate to cling to power that they're going to undermine the rule of law, destroy the Constitution, and ultimately destroy this country to do it. We have to fight back. We've got to find the tools at our disposal that we can mount a counteroffensive to defend this nation and protect the rule of law.
It seems like a bad joke, but it is something that was just admitted to, breaking as of this morning, 10 minutes before our show went live. Jack Smith admitting in court in black and white. We can put up the documents. Yeah, we brought the cover images to place on these documents. Yes, we threw the documents on the floor. Yes, we mixed up all the evidence. We have no idea where they go, where all the evidence goes. And more importantly, Your Honor, we staged all this. We staged it all for a photo that we then ended up leaking to the press in order to make our case. Forgive me, sir, but is this normal law enforcement practice? You're the head of you're the top law enforcement official of a large powerful American state. Would this be allowed in Missouri?
No, not at all. Look, there are sanctions for mishandling evidence. But again, I don't concede that this was accidental or negligent. This was intentional. This wasn't the mishandling of evidence. This is the manufacturing of evidence to make it look like he's more guilty, like he did something wrong, when in fact, they did something wrong. They violated his civil rights. And isn't the whole criminal case, isn't the whole investigation about mishandling documents? And then they come in and mishandle the documents and have to manufacture evidence to make it look like he did something wrong? There should be significant sanction, not only within the context of litigation, up to and including the dismissal of the charges as a sanction against the Department of Justice. But again, I think there needs to be a criminal referral for whoever had their hands and fingerprints on this to determine whether or not they violated the laws in their mishandling of the evidence and in their manufacturing of evidence to try to fabricate charges against the president.
Yeah, I mean, there's comedy skits written about this, but it does seem like one of the more egregious things that you can do. I don't see how the case goes forward. I guess I would like, before we move on to what you're doing in your state, your thoughts on this new hearing that's happening actually today about Jack Smith not being a proper special counsel. I'm sure you have some thoughts on this, but that's being heard right now today in court. Ed Meese has filed that because Jack Smith was not a federal employee and not Senate confirmed by any measure, that he actually is not a legal special counsel. And this seems to be a very big question, obviously, if Jack Smith can even continue his work. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, our Constitution and federal law govern who has the legal authority to level federal charges in United States District Court. Jack Smith lacks that authority. There's no empowering authority that they can point to. You can't bootstrap his authority onto somebody else's. He's acting as an independent counsel. He has not been so appointed. And absent some check and balance, you've got a rogue prosecutor forming a rogue commission and manufacturing evidence against the former president of the United States in a SWAT-style raid at his private residence. This is what a third world banana republic starts to look like. And again, even people who out there may say, look, I'm not with President Trump on the issues. First of all, you're wrong. But even if that's where you are, surely we can all agree this isn't fair. This defies the protections that are built into our Constitution. It was intended to protect us from the government, yet here the government is being weaponized to go after an individual to achieve a political objective. It is a dark day in the history of our democratic republic.
So there are glimmers of light, however, and you've received some pretty impressive headlines over the last week for suing the state of New York, right here from Fox News. Missouri Attorney General sues New York over unconstitutional lawfare against Trump. Time to restore the rule of law. So this is quite a move. Since we are not legal experts, perhaps you could explain it to us simply and clearly. How does this work when one state sues another?
Well, Missouri has a sovereign interest in participating on equal footing with other states in a national presidential election. When we entered this union together as states, we were co-equal, and yet the state of New York, through a rogue prosecutor and a collusive judiciary, is taking a presidential candidate off the campaign trail, tying them into court and ultimately into onerous sentencing provisions, whether it be a prison sentence, time in jail, community service, house arrest, whatever that looks like, and a gag order. Remember, the First Amendment protects not only a speaker's right to say things, but listeners' rights to hear. And Missourians' rights to participate in a presidential election and hear from their preferred candidate are being violated by the state of New York. Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution contemplates a process by which states could resolve differences. Missouri has a huge difference with the state of New York right now. We want to hear from President Trump. He needs to be on the campaign trail in the heat of a campaign in one of the most pivotal elections in this nation's history. And we can't let a rogue prosecutor in New York destroy our democratic process. That's why this case is so important. It's an original action at the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has adjudicated other differences between states in the past. Admittedly, those are typically about boundaries and water rights, but there's nothing to suggest that the founders didn't contemplate that one state might have a problem with another state trying to upend a presidential election.
So this is a very interesting line of attack here, because this is bumping this state issue, which they have used as a cover and a umbrella on this, into a federal issue. So every legal expert who's come on this show has been like, yeah, all right, the path to the federal courts is fraught, and it's going to take a while for any of this to reach the Supreme Court or to reach any federal court, since this was done in a dingy back office, rat-infested state court. But what you're saying is that because Donald Trump is running to be president of the United States and running for federal office, that he's depriving one of the 50 states, Missouri, of the right to speak. And so you are now affecting a federal issue. So that's the underlying argument here.
Absolutely. We know that the prosecution of President Trump in the illicit witch hunt prosecution in New York is replete with constitutional error. The problem is the normal judicial process to remedy that kind of issue is an individual appeal. Well, that takes 18 to 24 months. That appellate process is insufficient to redress the grievances of the electorate here in Missouri. We don't have time to wait for 18 to 24 months. The election will be over by then. We want to hear from President Trump now. And the fact that you've got a prosecutor and a judge in the state of New York who have taken him off the campaign trail, seek to further remove him from his ability to campaign as a chosen, of one of the major parties here in Missouri, as their chosen candidate, violates Missourians' rights to participate in the election. I would also say it is incredibly unconstitutional that the prosecutor in New York asked for a gag order. There's a strong presumption based on the First Amendment right to free speech against gag orders. And it's the defendant's right to a fair trial that the gag order is supposed to protect. Well, if the president wants to waive that right and speak to the voting public, he should be able to do so. And again, Missourians have a right to hear from him. The gag order was unconstitutional. The fact that they're trying to upend this election by removing President Trump from the campaign trail is unconstitutional. This is the tool. This is the mechanism the founders contemplated and codified in the United States Constitution for the state of Missouri to redress this grievance against New York.
You want to know, ladies and gentlemen, why we continue to have on the Attorney General of Missouri, and it is because he's like Michael Jordan in 1996 playing against a 6-and-under team. The wins, the points being scored in the state of Missouri if other attorney generals behaved like this, then we'd book them on the show. But the state of Missouri is the show me state, and they're showing us how to actually fight back, and they continue to win. It's incredible. The scoreboard continues to be run up in an embarrassing manner. You won big yesterday, sir, on student loans. Yes, something that is. You want to talk about a violation? I got to tell you, this audience feels that violation when the credit and the value is stolen from our pocketbooks and given to people who didn't decided to not pay their bills, and we all are forced to pay their bills for them so that Joe Biden can buy a vote. It is one of the most egregious violations that we feel, and you're actually winning on this issue.
Absolutely. We took Biden to task on this issue 1 year ago. 1 year ago this month, the United States Supreme Court ruled that President Biden had no legal authority to redistribute $500 billion in debt owed by individuals who took out student loans. There's no such thing as debt cancellation. Somebody pays it off. I'm not going to let Joe Biden saddle working Missouri families with Ivy League debt. But make no mistake about it, this was never about President Biden trying to help anyone. It's about him trying to buy votes. And he's again gone back with Plan B and tried to violate the law, violate the United States Constitution provision that gives Congress the power of the purse in his attempt to illegally buy votes. We filed suit. We asked for preliminary injunction. And yesterday afternoon, the court handed down a nationwide preliminary injunction stopping President Biden from saddling working Missouri families and working American families with Ivy League debt. This is a huge win for all of America because, again, it reinforces the legal principle that the president doesn't have authority to redistribute wealth. He doesn't have authority to spend money. Only Congress has that authority, and they have not granted him any authorization in law.
It's very interesting that you brought up Congress, because something that went viral just a few days ago was a member of Congress staff for Marcy Kaptur, a Democrat staffer who apparently has a bunch of different residences. Who knows where they're getting their bills? Very strange story, but nonetheless, this Democrat staffer refused to pay off, even though they make $100,000 a year in Congress, which is its own problem, refused to pay off $8,000 in student loan debt, and Joe Biden just paid it off for him using our bank accounts as the working class American public. It was obviously created outrage online, and it sort of showed the internals of how this actually works, right? Like Democrat activists getting their bills paid by the rest of us to thank them for their fealty to Joe Biden and to buy their votes.
Yeah. Ivory tower elitists who don't want to have to work for a living. Look, this is personal for me. I paid for my college in blood, sweat, and tears in service to the United States Army, deployed to Iraq twice, and then came home and went to law school in the post 9/11 GI Bill. And I have friends that didn't come home, that use the same process. And yet here you've got some spoiled brat making north of $90,000 a year, dining out every night, and wants the rest of us to pay off his bill. It's un-American. It's illegal. We're going to put a stop to it.
Yeah, it would have only, I think the math worked out that it would have only taken like $100 a month to have actually paid this off, and these are the people managing your federal budget. So it actually makes a lot. It actually makes a lot of sense. Here's the photo. Here we go. Can you describe, Mr. Attorney General, what's going on in this photo?
Yeah, that's me on the turret of my Bradley fighting vehicle out on patrol in the Nineveh province, Iraq, somewhere near the Syrian border. Hey, I've seen what a secure border looks like because I helped secure the border between Syria and Iraq in 2005. And I'm here to tell you, when you put tanks with guns and soldiers with weapons out there, the bad guys don't want to come across the border. And yet the border between Mexico and the United States under President Biden's watch is less secure than the border between Iraq and Syria in 2005. It's shameful. Again, you've got people who have served in this country who actually value our Constitution and love our country, and yet President Biden's going to turn it over to cartels and criminal aliens.
What a better country we had when the preponderance of people who served in our Congress or our electorate actually served their nation. There were some golden years actually created when people understood what service was, service to their country instead of service to themselves, which is what we see happening here, and it's destroying the country very, very quickly. It's quite shocking. A true fighter. You can see photographic evidence, actually, of the Attorney General of Missouri fighting. We hope that your next lawsuit, sir, is suing over illegal criminal aliens voting in American elections, because that seems to be the way that they have it wired now, coming down to the wire. And the Biden team seems so confident in Joe Biden's victory in spite of every single poll showing total collapse. It does make you wonder what they have rewired behind the scenes. And every single new article is one of the welfare offices offering voting rights to criminal aliens who've come across the border. And the math just works out. The algorithm just kind of works out simply. That would maybe be the way that they're planning on running up the score in 2024.
Yeah, and I think that the two stories you covered first, the student loan story and the lawfare story, are really flip sides of the same coin. President Biden and the left can't win an argument. They can't win a fair election. They can't win anything on the merits. They've got to rig the system, silence opposing voices, take political opponents out of the equation, buy off votes, increase their share of the votes by allowing criminal aliens to vote in order to win. And that's what makes Americans upset, because this, again, it undermines the very principles upon which this country was founded. We're not going to let Joe Biden destroy the United States of America.
Yeah. Isn't that refreshing to hear? Isn't that refreshing to hear? It's why you got to go in and follow the great Attorney General of Missouri. Andrew Bailey is the man. He's the man who's actually fighting and actually racking up wins. When was the last time we won anything? When was the last time Republicans actually fought and won? And there's a man who knows how to do it. Make sure that he has the firepower that he needs. 155,000 Americans can't be wrong. Make sure that his voice is amplified and heard. And Godspeed, Mr. Attorney General. Keep racking up those wins.
Thank you, sir. Always appreciate getting to speak with you.
Thank you.